Good afternoon. How are you? Well, happy Mother's Day to all of you. My mom passed years ago, but I still think of her, and I think that's the way it is, and of my dad and my younger brother. And it's the remembrances that carry with you what can't be physically with you today. So all the best. Have a wonderful day. Take care of Mom today. The question of our current state of affairs is there an overlapping template that explains how we got where we are? And there are political science analyses about the beast that is government. And perhaps there are several schools, or 20 schools, that talk about how to deal with that beast. And here's the thing. One of the arguments made about our government, and it's in the Constitution specifically to provide for the general welfare, is that a strong government can protect the interests of the individual. Now, I do think, and have thought, since I was a young boy, before I knew of these characterizations of government, that one of the most important factors of governing was how we take care of our own. In fact, I think, and I've repeated, that that's the definition of a civilization, how we treat our own. So when we fight to make all people equal, we don't believe that any one person should be first among others. Primus inter pares. The former, that each of us is equal before the law and has a vote, is a decision that when the Constitution say we the people, that is our model for our government. There are others that have thought, no, we want a government by the few. And history, if they read, would teach them that a government by the few becomes an oppressive government that defines what rights may or may not be protected, and often arbitrarily. And that is the government that the Republicans seem to want. Now, when we approach these visions of government and think that it's rational to consider the kind of government we believe we've had always perfecting itself, that we look at Republicans and we say they must be paid off, they must be afraid of Trump or someone. But we can't ignore the fact that Trump is the instrument for what they believe in their heart and soul, no matter what they say, whatever ridiculous things they say, which is they want an all-white society. They want women subservient. They don't want people coming here from abroad. They particularly don't want the dilution, the poison, Trump calls it, to spread through our society and have people that are what Jesse Jackson called the Rainbow Coalition. That's our real division here. Now, to the extent we have this trial acting, as you will, a symbol center for the ongoing battle. You see a court of law being conducted in one of the most disciplined way on the side of the prosecution. You see a defense which is little more than a denial without evidence, without an attack on the evidence, and without a strong attack on the legal theory that brings Trump to court. Some may ask, what delayed it? That other government delayed it. When Trump, by his Attorney General Barr, caused the Southern District of New York not to prosecute Trump, and even fired, dismissed, kicked to the side of the road Berman, the then U.S. Attorney, for fear that he would go further. And so what we have is a division now, and we see it operating. And we see even the strongest who would assert the powers of government are pushed back. And as I talk now, we have the federal case in D.C. is stopped. The federal case in Florida against Trump is stopped. The state case in Georgia is stopped, subject to an appeal apparently. And the only case going forward is in New York by Bragg. The only case going against the falsity of this man's supposed fortune is in New York. The only individuals who have brought successful cases against Trump are in New York. That is the table that is set. And what we have to be concerned with now is a discipline among ourselves to use the powers we have, not to slip the punch, because you don't. Silence is acquiescence. Remaining silent is losing an argument because you failed to speak. We saw across America how students protested. They protested because, sure, maybe some are radical, but the world watched and a court saw offenses violative of the law, war crimes on both sides. I don't enjoy saying that. I don't enjoy the fact that it's proof positive that religious governments are destructive of humanity, of dignity, of the soul, of civilization. In a presidential election year, politicians' opinions and advice are torn between getting elected, remaining silent, and not doing anything. The students protested because the system didn't provide any hope that the slaughter would be contained. And consider how irrational it is when Biden provided a cover against an attack by Iran that basically held them safely from the attack. And now, when Israel wants to go into Rafah and put at risk so many people who are civilians and children and women, non-combatants, because they feel they must crush every person who could possibly come back months and years from now. That's not international law. That's not modern warfare. Now, Reagan pushed back on Israel and Lebanon for the kind of attack they were doing of the civilians who were hurt. Biden has done the same thing over Rafah. Now, it's interesting in the talking heads today, Lindsey Graham, a mental midget in a policy sense, because he follows the winds, the political winds. And this time, so desperate an argument he had to make against Biden is he said that he thought Truman had it right when he dropped nuclear weapons on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He ignores the context. He ignores the rationales. I happen to think Truman was wrong. I understand the argument. And I think it was wrong because we set a precedent, a horrible, evil precedent to destroy so many just because they're physically in a location. Now, this next week, we can expect to see Michael Cohen on the witness stand. There are several ways to try this case, and I think that they decided that the testimony they've had is about Trump's true relationship to Stormy Daniels was enough. And they feel they have it, and they don't want to lean on this prejudicial material any further. Now, I say prejudicial, but what I'm also saying is necessary, because evidence at a criminal trial is prejudicial. And the evidence here is appropriate because it meets the argument that Trump wasn't just doing locker room talk and suffering because of the Access Hollywood tape, but an additional instance of similar behavior would prove that this was how he thought and felt and acted. And did we want a man like that to be president? And as we all know, he lost 1 million plus votes by the popular vote, but he managed to fight to a win in battleground states using the Electoral College. So that's our problem, if you will, that we have a system that has finally been invoked to test whether it's necessary there be a reckoning for Trump. Now, as citizens, we may already believe that. And in the days of the trial, we've seen evidence of several things, including the strength of the evidence that this is what Trump was doing, interfering in an election by subtracting information and data that bore directly on his credentials. Even as Comey was compromising Hillary Clinton by having an on-again, off-again investigation he only cut short days before the election. Outrageous. So, if at the end of next week, or soon afterwards, if Trump is convicted and treated differently, this exercise will have been for nothing. And hopefully the judge sees it that way and doesn't do, as I think Special Counsel Smith did too generously, by giving time to Judge Luce Cannon to further confound the prosecution of Trump. So, that's kind of where we are. And a matter of some personal interest and curiosity, you may have read how a Massachusetts man died 2 months after he had a pig kidney transplant. Now, he had a pig kidney transplant, and they had hoped that it would last 2 years, but it did not. And when I spoke to the doctors at Johns Hopkins about double lung transplant, the early patients were even briefer. So we'll see how that goes forward, and it's a difficult medical challenge. So what are we to do? We're supposed to look at our government and say, you have an obligation to serve us and to protect individual rights and liberties. and to conduct trials in a fair and equanimous way. And this proceeding, by its very nature, contradicts the pyrotechnics of false propaganda about what's going on in contradiction of what is really going on. We can't allow that to continue. And we have to let those who have the courage to go forward to know we support them and we know what they're doing. And to keep going, not to stop. And not to say it'll be difficult to put Trump in jail. God damn it, just put him in jail if he continues. A child said, I have a special party I want to go to. Can you ground me in a couple of days? The answer would be no. The immediacy of the punishment for the act is a core concern when punishing anyone. And that's how it should be for Trump, that he should be punished as he will and has attacked the court system, the witnesses, the players. So, I hope you're having a good Mother's Day. Temperature 62. Slight wind, about 4 miles an hour. Beautiful sunshiny day, and it's supposed to rain, and it has already. So, goodbye from the Cathedral of Trees. Look forward to talking to you soon. Bye-bye.